thinking about, Kyle?
Just how awesome mystery is.
Yeah, but he didn't tell us anything about the Colosseum.
Or the Gladiators.
Who's that weird kid dancing out there by your playset?
That's that Colby kid from our classical Middle Ages class.
Maybe he will know something about the gladiators and the Colosseum.
Hey freak, what do you know about the Colosseum?
Oh, Kyle, hey man, I'm surprised you're not at the gym. I'll help you with the Colosseum and Gladiators if you want. Let's go inside and check it out.
The Colosseum was a place where many people would gather to see games, races, mock battles, and gladiator contests. There were 150 holidays a year by 8250, and on these days of celebration, the Colosseum would fill with 50,000 people, rich and poor alike. The spectacles combine bravery and cruelty, honor and violence.
Hey guys, I just read that the original idea for the Colosseum came from Emperor Vespasian. Originally, it was named after his family, the Flavians.
Hey guys, did you know that it was designed as a typical Roman amphitheater, an arena with a central stage surrounded by seats? Engineers realized that a circular amphitheater could seat twice as many as a semicircular one. Work began in AD 72, and they built it so quickly that it was ready to be dedicated in 80 AD.
So give us some details.
There has to be seats for 45,000 people, and there also has to be room for 5,000 in standing room.
If there's 50,000 people, there should be 80 entrances.
We can reserve 2 for the Emperor and 2 for the Gladiators.
That sounds good.
I dedicate this to the Roman people and name it the Colosseum. Men from noble families, influential politicians, and the emperor's friends were allowed to sit in specially reserved seats. The rest of the population could only enter if they had tokens.
Emperor and friends sat in marble areas beside the arena. Also, private areas were made for priests and church officials. All remaining seats were divided up among citizens of various social status.
I just read that in the Colosseum, the walls were decorated with carved stone columns. The tradition was that they were arranged in a set order. Heavy Doric columns on the ground, lighter Ionic columns on the first floor, and elaborate Corinthian columns on the third floor. The top floor columns were decorated with stone acanthus leaves.
Roman sculptors were extremely skilled at producing lifelike portraits in metal, marble, and stone. The Colosseum was decorated with thousands of statues standing under the arches on the first and second floors. Sculptors chose popular topics for statues such as gods and goddesses, famous athletes, emperors, and heroes.
The enormous seating area was too large to be covered by a wooden roof, so canvas awnings called velaria were made. They could be pulled across to shelter spectators from rain and sun. These were operated by former sailors who were used to handling big sails on Roman cargo ships.
The Colosseum had a large staff of hard-working managers. Staff guarded entrances, cleaned and moved heavy fences. The managers looked after day-to-day maintenance. Workmen cleaned and built barricades. Grooms looked after animals, and slaves worked and had to remove dead bodies from the arena.
Now I'm going to tell you guys about the gladiators. The first gladiator combat in Rome took place at the funeral of a nobleman named Junius Brutus in 264 BC. Brutus' son Marcus and Decimus revived an ancient Etruscan tradition of having slaves fight at the funeral of a great leader. They believed this would please the gods. 3 pairs of slaves were forced to fight to the death.
It says here that this strange custom grew in popularity as more rich men presented these games to honor their dead. In 216 BC, 22 pairs of slaves fought at the funeral of Marcus Lepidus.
Gladiators made it clear that an ambitious Roman could buy a crowd's attention, ensure his social standings, and demonstrate his power over life and death by hosting gladiator games.
Well, it's a big show. and kick.
By the time of Julius Caesar, gladiators became a recreational activity. Julius Caesar was responsible for popularizing the gladiatorial games and even introduced naval battles.
You may be wondering who gladiators were. The vast majority of gladiators were either prisoners of war, criminals, or slaves. The biggest and strongest were bought just for gladiator training. Those convicted of murder, robbery, arson, or sacrilege were sent to the arena to be killed by an executioner with a sword or thrown to the beasts. This was supposed to act as a deterrent for would-be criminals.
The amount of instructions gladiators received varied. In general, a 2-year combat in the arena, followed by 3 years in a training school. Anyone who served 3 years in a gladiator training generally made an excellent teacher.
Owners could dispose of their slaves any way they wanted. A slave that tried to run away or was accused of theft could be sent to the arena. It wasn't until the 2nd AD that owners were prohibited from sending slaves into the arena for an unjust.
There were also men who volunteered to be gladiators. As a matter of fact, more than half of all gladiators were in by their own choice.
Guys, it says on this page that champion gladiators who showed exceptional skill and bravery in the arena were granted retirement from further combat. And also, women gladiators were considered a novelty.
Those types of gladiators were outfitted in the equipment of the armies they conquered. 6 basic classifications of gladiators. Samnite. The first gladiator type. The Samnite is named after the people of Samnium, one of the earliest enemies of Rome. Samnites were heavily armored, wearing a visored helmet with a high crest decorated with feathers and leather or metal bands around their arms and left legs. They carried a large rectangular shield called a scutum. The straight sword they used was called a gladius, from which the word gladiator was derived. Next up is the hoplomachus. The hoplomachus was another heavily armored gladiator whose armor, weapon, and fighting style were very similar to those of the Samnite. In fact, archaeologists can't confirm what differences, if any, there were between the two, other than that until the reign of Augustus. All heavy gladiators were called Samnites, and after Augustus, his gladiators with heavy armor were called hoplomachi. After that, there's the Thracian. The Thracian was lightly armored, carrying a very small round or square shield called a parma, and a strange curved sword called a sicca. His helmet had a large crest, sometimes in the shape of a griffin, a mythological beast. He wore leg guards on both legs, not just on the left leg, as did the Samnite and the hoplomachus. These guards were very tall, covering the legs up to the tops of the thighs. The Thracian always fought against a heavily armored gladiator. Next up is the myrmio. The myrmio, or fishman, was identified by the images of fishes that decorated his helmet. He fought with a short sword and carried a large round shield that helped protect his unarmored legs. His name begins to make sense when one learns that he is often paired with the Rhetarius, who would try to catch his prey, the myrmio, in his net. Even though he appears relatively unprotected, the myrmio, along with the Samnite, hoplomachus, and secutor, was classified by the Romans as heavy gladiator because of his large and heavy shield. Rhetarius, or net fighter, fought with a 3-pronged fishing spear called a trident and a net. His fighting strategy was to entangle his opponent in his net and then skewer him as a fisherman would skewer his catch. Small lead weights around the edge helped spread the net when thrown, and with the attached cord, the Rhetarius could draw it back if he missed his opponent. Unlike other gladiators, the Rhetarius wore almost no armor. He wore only a headband, no helmet, and his sole protection was a guard on his left arm with a large flat shoulder piece. Lastly, there's the secutor. The secutor, or chaser, got his name from his fighting technique, which was to chase his opponent around the arena. He wore a round, crested helmet with 2 small, round eye holes. The rounded shape was less likely to become entangled in the net of the Rhetarius, or net fighter, his principal opponent. His right arm was covered with a protective leather or metal band, and in his right hand he carried a short sword or dagger. With this left hand he carried a large shield, and his left leg he wore a metal leg guard, called an ochreia. So his left side was completely protected.
Hey, did you guys know that they used to flood the Colosseum so gladiators could participate in ship battles?
Soldiers would travel around the world to acquire animals to battle the gladiators. They were let loose on captives or prisoners to be chased around by the gladiators. When the Colosseum was first opened in 20 AD, over 5,000 animals were killed on the first day.
Alright guys, well I guess that's everything. So I'll catch you later.
Yeah, you sure,
Thank you.
Thanks for teaching us all this.
Alright, if you guys need anything, you know where to find me.
Okay, see ya.
Bye, Colby.